Hello everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical, and if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. So yes, I am definitely far too late. As a matter of fact, a little over a month too late, because I finally had the opportunity to get myself to the theaters. And while there are plenty of other films out there that I could have chosen, of course, I want to make sure that when I do go to the movies, that I go with my significant other. But at the same point, we also want to make sure that we see a movie that we know that we're both going to want to see and enjoy. So, of course, I went to go see the newest installment of the MCU, the 36th film in the core MCU library. I say core because thanks to all of the movies that have come out in the last couple of years and the storyline that we are now in, we are literally adding all of the previous Marvel films from Fox and Sony into this whole timeline. So you pretty much can incorporate everything from the 1998 film Blade all the way up until now as part of the MCU. But of course, we're talking about the core films that started with Iron Man in 2008, and this of course is also the final part of the MCU Phase 5. It is crazy to believe that we are now approaching Phase 6 in the very same year with the new Fantastic Four film that is coming out in just a couple of weeks, and I am planning to see that movie in theaters. So, Thunderbolts was a very interesting film for me. It was definitely something that I enjoyed. I'm not going to lie about the fact that I did enjoy Thunderbolts. There's a lot that this movie got right, and then I'm not going to say that there's some things that this movie got wrong, but I'm going to say not so right. So, Thunderbolts, of course, is about the misfit toys of the MCU. A couple of characters that were actually introduced in the recent films, like Yelena, also known as the White Widow, the Red Guardian, US Agent, aka John Walker, just to name a few. And so Valentina, who is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, says in regards to what she is handling that I need to get rid of my loose ends, which is a very interesting allegory for what's going on in the MCU right now. Because after Endgame, Phase 4 started off somewhat linear, and then all the way into Phase 5, it just went all over the place. So, I call Thunderbolts the second of two members of the MCU cleanup crew, because much like Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts is actually one of the two films in which Kevin Feige and company are trying to tie up a whole bunch of loose ends and get the MCU back on track towards the end of the current saga that we're in, which is going to end with Avengers Secret Wars. So they really went out of their way to say that if you have seen everything from the stuff on the MCU television series like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as films like Black Widow, this movie is going to definitely sorta, kinda fix everything for you. The positives about this film is that I really thought that the story was very gripping. It was definitely one of the grittier, more down-to-earth stories that I have seen since the best MCU film, which of course is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. We had some solid acting in this film from David Harbour, Florence Pugh, Wyatt Russell, just to name a few, as well as Lewis Pullman, who I just found out today that he is Bill Pullman's son, as Bob, who would eventually turn into the antagonist of the film, aka the Sentry/Void. I don't consider this a spoiler because this movie has been out for a month. And of course, the biggest spoiler is something I'm only going to slightly touch upon towards the end of this review. I thought that the story was very interesting about how there is a series of people that have definitely lost their way, and this unexpected meeting of these people to discover that they are basically being stamped out by the person they worked for, whether it is currently or at another point in time. So they realize that the only way for them to actually pick up their personal pieces and move forward, whether they want to be heroes or villains or whatever, and just create a team And of course, the heart of this team, while a lot of people would say it's Yelena, I think it is definitely Bucky, who is of course played by Sebastian Stan, and he definitely also has some very great moments. And I also really enjoyed how the film reached its climax. I thought that it was probably one of the darker parts of the film, but I also think another big point in this movie was this was one of the very few MCU films in which the characters are very much humanized, because we see that all of these people come from very unfortunate pasts, and they don't really know what they're doing in their lives. They're suffering from depression and anxiety, the concepts of feeling alone and unfulfilled. These are things that we don't necessarily see in the Marvel films, and this is definitely a far cry from what the Thunderbolts were in the comic books. I mean, the only similarity that the Thunderbolts of the comic books has to the Thunderbolts of this film is the fact that it is not so great people posing as quote-unquote heroes, because in the comic books, which came out in 1996, it's such a long time, and I actually have the very first issue of Thunderbolts, which is pretty cool. It was a group of villains who were disguising themselves as heroes, and misfit toys that nobody thought about or people forgot about, and they were led by Baron Zemo, who had not been in the comics for years. That's the only similarity that the Thunderbolts in the comics have with the Thunderbolts of the film. This is very much an MCU film and very much in an MCU world. The negativity in this film is sort of something that I always come back to. It's the fact that Marvel sometimes tries to really push the bar, and then when you think they're finally going to go over that edge, like they pretty much did in The Winter Soldier, they take a couple of steps back. And it always is the same reason. It's the jokes. There were so many unneeded jokes. I mean, I know that the humor is something that's been there since the original Iron Man film, but it's now gotten to the point where it's annoying and forced rather than something that feels natural and well-timed. I mean, I will definitely say that I got a lot of laughs from David Harbour, but that's just because that's David Harbour. And I will definitely say that Wyatt Russell, for me, really stole the film, even though David Harbour really shows that he is definitely trying to steal the film as the Red Guardian. But the U.S. Agent is a character that I personally am very interested in based on the pages of the comic books, and also considering the fact with his role in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I really did like that, and I was very curious to see what Valentino was going to do with him after that series. Of course, once again, I will also make it known that this is also part of Kevin Feige's lie, saying that you did not have to watch the series that were on Disney Plus in order to see these Marvel films and understand them. The truth of the matter is, if you don't see The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're not going to understand the whole story about John Walker, because John Walker has a major role in that series, as well as Sebastian Stan's character development. I mean, luckily, Captain America Brave New World, you didn't necessarily need to worry about seeing the television show because you knew that he was already going to become Captain America in the end of Avengers Endgame. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the film. I mean, of course, where are we going with this movie? Well, of course, the big spoiler, which was a forced spoiler, of course, is that this is no longer the Thunderbolts. They were always talking about what is that little asterisk at the end of the word Thunderbolts. Well, it's because of the fact that this team is the new Avengers. So I am actually kind of laughing. I'm like, when the Blu-ray comes out, which I will definitely be purchasing, is it going to be called Thunderbolts? Is it going to be called New Avengers? Is it going to be called Thunderbolts / New Avengers? I have no idea. But one of the few things that I will say is that it did its job, and that was to put the MCU a little more back on its track, and that is the fact that when you go and see the post-credits scene, you will totally understand that we are definitely heading towards a film inspired by Jonathan Hickman's phenomenal series Secret Wars. And the other thing that I am a little bit surprised about is the fact that this movie is getting excellent word of mouth, and it's not making money in the box office. As a matter of fact, there's so many news articles saying that Thunderbolts is a box office bust and it's going to cost Disney a lot of money, and it's so surprising that people are not going to the theaters to see this movie after all the people who have seen this movie already said it's actually a good movie. Go and enjoy it. So, is it superhero fatigue? Is it people giving the middle finger to Hollywood? I have no idea. But I went to see Thunderbolts. I am very excited for the first film in the MCU Phase 6, which of course is Fantastic Four First Steps. Will it make more money than Superman? I have no idea. Will it be another box office bust? I have no idea. But I am hoping that the MCU will get further back on track, because starting with Iron Man and being a faithful fan of the MCU, seeing its highs and now seeing its lows, and seeing it really try to come out of the lows that it has been in for a couple of years now, I am really hoping that we get back to somewhere great. And I'm hoping that by the time we get to Avengers Secret Wars, we will all be satisfied once again, just like we were with Avengers Endgame. So yeah, I want to see this movie again. I'm definitely planning to own this movie, and I am going to give Thunderbolts 3 stars out of 4. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave a comment in the box below. Let me know your thoughts on Thunderbolts, and I will see you in the next one.